This is TWiT.
Store is open.
Wait, I just want to point out.
Okay, you talk.
That thing that they just said at the end.
Yeah.
What the what? Like they shot the whole thing on an iPhone?
They shot the whole thing on an iPhone.
Whoa.
iPhone 15 Pro Max.
So there are only two colors on the Max, silver and black. There's no gray anymore.
They shot the thing with an iPhone.
You know, I really wish that I had talked to the technical directors and producers ahead of this, so I could have had them play back the number of times Leo said, "I'm not going to buy a Mac. I'm not going to buy a Mac."
I'm
we
not.
could have just had a super cut
I'm not.
of him saying he wasn't going to buy it.
64 gigs of RAM, or should I go to 128? No, I think 64 is enough.
Well, he's not buying it. He's going to spec it out.
It's $800 more for 128.
I think 64 is plenty,
I'm
especially
not
with the performance.
So I just spec'd out a top-of-the-line Max, which, as they mentioned, won't be available till November. Space Black, the 16-core CPU, 40-core GPU, 16-core neural engine, 64 gigs, or you can add $800 for another 64. We're talking $42.99. Oh, and 2 terabyte drive. $42.
Okay,
so it's $5,000 for the one with 128.
Yeah.
Invest in the storage.
5,000 with 128. Why would anybody get 128, Alex?
Well, I do projects that run out of RAM at 64.
All right.
I would definitely.
$400 less for 1 terabyte. I got 2, or I'm looking at 2. I didn't press anything yet. $600 more for 4 terabytes. You know what? I'm going to get 4. You said it's better to get it all on the board. You know,
right? I never said that before, but now it is, because the transport speed internally is so high. Now I don't know what it is for the laptop, but on the transfer speed on the Studio is 5 gigs. Like, and you can, but it's really hard to get external storage that's going to go 5 gigs.
Delivery November 7th. Well, that's not
too far from now.
Wait a minute. Did I do something wrong?
Days.
That's the M3 Max.
Yeah,
I thought he said November.
Later in November.
That's
I did later in November.
Yeah, but not that much later. All right. Well,
hold on.
Yeah, that's next Tuesday.
Let me make sure I got that right.
Yeah.
14-inch MacBook Pro Space Black.
That's how you can confirm
14
it's the new one.
It's the 16-inch.
Oh, it's the 16 that's later.
Okay.
No, Should I wait for the 16?
Wait, you said you wanted the smaller.
Yeah, I like the smaller.
He wants that. You said, oh, the 16-inch MacBook Air.
But I can drive 4 other monitors. I don't really need it for the portable part.
Right.
All right. Well, we'll just pretend that I didn't hear him.
I just want to know I'm capable of. I can't buy the one that I want. I put the one in there. I was like 8 gigs of memory, or 8 gigs of storage, and all the things. It's $7,200 for a
yikes! So a 30-minute, very scary, fast event. No skits, no Octavia Spencer.
Maybe that's what they were. Maybe they're just talking about the event. The event was going to be scary fast. Yeah, it's going to be
brief appearance from Issa Rae, and we think maybe some other celebrities in that promo video at the beginning.
I think Jack from Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso.
I think,
okay.
Yeah, I think the woman that was in there with the long straight hair.
We did see Captain Kirk.
Dressed as Captain Kirk.
No costumes, but we saw some orange stuff.
Yeah, it was all dark
and
mode
skeletons and things. Johnny Sarugi talked about reaching a broader set of users than ever. I don't know. I'd have to look, but it sounds like when they first shipped the M1 and the M2, they held off on the Pro and the Max for later. They're doing an M3, an M3 Pro, and M3 Max all today. All 3-nanometer EUV architecture from TSMC.
I'm guessing they're saving the Ultras just only for the
Pro and the Studio.
And Pro.
Yeah, I think that's to be expected. Dynamic caching is an interesting new part of the micro architecture. They say
I mean, it opens up a lot.
So you've always said the fact that they have unified memory access means that your GPU has access to the entire amount of RAM, but it sounded like the way they were calculating it meant that there was more RAM allocated than necessary, and the GPU didn't. It sounded like it wasn't efficient.
It's not because it's saying I need all of this data. Like I need all this data all the time to do what I'm doing. So you can make it a CPU or GPU operation, but you're still carving out a box that represents. And if you think about like an audio signal, if I say hello and that requires a big piece, and then I talk the rest of the way quiet, I'm wasting all that extra white space, on something else. And so if you take the data and say, well, I can dynamically allocate that, it means that I can potentially give away the RAM to you have multi-tenancy against that RAM. It does feel like there's a little bit of magic in there. Like you could overdrive the whole thing, but by taking, there's in theory, you could get too much. But if you had one operation running, it could say, well, I'm going to give you way more RAM, for some of the stuff than you would normally get, because I know that you don't. I'm not trying to protect that high point that you had before. So I'm going to scale up the RAM usage. This is I'm guessing because it's the first time I've heard about it. So, but I think that's what it's doing. It's saying, I'm going to scale up the usage of that RAM because I'm not protecting the high end anymore. And I'm just going to use what everything that's there, which theoretically could allow you to, like when I talked about, there's operations that I do with photogrammetry that run out of RAM. Like it just goes, I can't do anymore. I need more RAM. And so, this could theoretically allow that to happen. So it's interesting.
Local memory dynamically allocated in real time. They say this will increase the GPU performance. They have hardware accelerated mesh shading and ray tracing.
So I think I don't know. Obviously, this is the first time I've seen it, so I don't know. The thing that I think that they're going after with the mesh shading is most likely something that looks a little like nanites. Nanites are something that Epic does inside of Unreal Engine. So my guess is they're not, it's something related to that. And of course, the ray tracing is going after what NVIDIA and other people do in their graphics cards.
Right. So. Faster, 2.5 times faster than the M1 on the GPU performance. And the processors are faster too. The CPUs, they say up to 80% faster. You see that on the screen. But they claimed the performance cores are 30% faster than the M1. The efficiency core are 50% faster, and a 60% faster neural engine. These are the kinds of big jumps I kind of expected going to the 3-nanometer process. They were not the jumps we saw in the new iPhone 15. That was only about 10% faster than its previous model, and that was because they were using a different 3-nanometer node, kind of an intermediate node. So they are obviously using the top of the line 3 nanometers. I think one of the reasons this event is happening so late is because there was some question about availability and yields, and TSMC probably came through a few months ago and said, yeah, we got it, you can have them. AV1 decoding has been added, not encoding, to the ProRes RAW encoding and decoding. And you said, Alex, AV1 is a newer codec.
Yeah, it's going to replace, for a lot of companies, it's going to eventually replace HEVC. So it's, because HEVC is, a lot of companies got together, including Apple, and said, we're tired of paying for the HEVC. Right. So they're going to, they want, and so this has been a consortium, Apple, Netflix, YouTube, lots of folks have gotten together to be part of the AV1 consortium. They specifically
mentioned Netflix. So this would only benefit you, though, watching video. And maybe how you get the decode of it. That 22-hour battery life is a more efficient decode. Maybe makes it better for watching. Right, and
potentially makes it better for things like, I don't know how many threads it can run, but the other thing that it could do theoretically is like a Zoom ISO kind of thing. It could theoretically mean that if Zoom is supporting AV1, if they ever did that, then you could theoretically, Zoom ISO could pull even more feeds. I don't even know how you get more feeds out of Zoom ISO, because the M1 will do 8 feeds, but the M3 could theoretically do more. So
Scott Michaud in our IRC says mesh shaders are a kind of replacement for vertex and geometry shaders. So it's mostly for gaming, but I guess 3D as well. And I would imagine that what you're seeing well, when they announced the Vision Pro, they said it would not have an M3. They said it'd have an M2 in it. I wonder.
It might. Again, I think there's you had to put pencils down at some point. So that's what you have with the Vision Pro. I think that, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, they'll release another Vision Pro that's
with a
M3 or M4, M5.
Yeah.
And it'll be more expensive, or the same price or more expensive. And the one that we see now at $3,500 will be like $2,000 or $1,500. Same thing they do with the phones. It'll go down. That price will start to go down to a more manageable amount.
Kate Bergeron, VP of Hardware, came on to show a little bit more about the performance increases The M3 nothing is 60% faster than the M1, 40% faster than the M2. The M3 Pro is 40% faster than the M1 Pro and can support more displays, two external displays, which is a big deal. They didn't mention that on the M3, so I think the M3 might be limited as the current M1 and 2 are. The M3 Max, up to 128 gigs of RAM, 4 external displays. They say high-res displays. I presume that's 4K. 22 hours of battery life. They did say a kind of stunning number, 11 times faster than the fastest Intel Mac. 11 times faster.
It's 6K.
Up to 6K?
2 external displays with up to 6K resolution at 60 hertz, or 1 external display with up to 6K resolution at 60 hertz, and 1 external display with up to 4K resolution at 144 hertz.
That's for the M3?
That's for the M3 Pro.
Pro.
Yeah.
Okay. And the Max is twice that.
Yeah, and it can also do 8K, 1 for the M3 Pro, if you'd like.
So this was something they had to do. They've really improved the display capabilities. These are still liquid retina XDR displays, 1,000 nits. They can now do 600 nits in HDR mode, which
the SDR content gets bumped to 600
nits, which matches the studio display, and that I guess is important if you're using a studio display.
I will say, like we've been doing some R&D on office hours to do HDR, like actually do office hours in HDR. And when you look at it, it pops. Like it just pops out. Yeah. It really is. HDR is going to, and we're not seeing a lot of people take advantage of it yet, but as you start to see people shoot for it, you're going to see a lot more coming up. Films are not really good HDR examples because filmmakers tend to have their creative leaning is towards kind of desaturated, not a huge amount of contrast. So what you're really starting to see is in other areas, sports and other things.
Events, space black, anodized aluminum, and silver, the 2 colors. And black will, I think, get a lot of attention.
And they've very much talked about the new coating they're using for fingerprint resistance.
They're aware of the fact that the midnight blue MacBook Airs are really fingerprint magnets.
They are.
If by January we don't see like half the influence out there with black. I mean, it's just a flex. Like it'll just be you don't have to guess. You know that you have the newest one,
and that's why you do that, right? If you must have an M3. Yeah, the same. It looks like the same ports. Looks like the same fingerprint reader. In other words, these are not redesigned machines except for a new color. These are the same as the previous machines. Same displays.
They made it black.
The price is dropping for the base model to $1,599. $24.99 for the higher end models. Ordering today, available next week for all but the 16-inch. The 16-inch, I just didn't order. So I just spec'd a 16-inch, actually top of the line everything.
$7,200.
$7,200, and November 15th. So it isn't much.
That's not much
later. It's a week later.
Yeah.
By the way, that was with an 8 terabyte drive, which is probably the single biggest or most expensive component, and 128 gigs of RAM. So the iMac also, they gave the iMac a minute or two.
Yeah, exactly.
They spent a lot of time with it.
They had to fit it into 30 minutes. It's a 30-minute slot.
It's pretty clear.
Dagnabbit.
Most of what they were talking about really was the new processor, and it is scary fast. It's a big bump. The iMac will be twice as fast as an M1 iMac. When you talk that kind of factor from one machine to another, you're talking about, we normally say unless there's more than 5%, you're not even going to notice it. When you're talking 200%, you will notice it. Everything will seem significantly faster. Same screen size, same screen resolution. I think same price, $12.99. You can order it today. Ships next week, and I presume the same colors. It looked like they had all the same colors. That was it. They did not give us many more specs. We don't know what it was saying. How much does it weigh? I don't know. The same. Yeah. I would guess exactly the same.
There's no reason
exactly
the same.
Why it would weigh more. Those extra transistors don't weigh very much.
It's 0.0002 grams heavier.
But this is a machine that will kind of be the benchmark laptop, even in the Windows world. People will look at this and say, okay, when are we getting machines that are this good for Windows?
It's hard.
It's hard.
It's hard. Like the thing is that this Apple has leaned into what makes them different, which is this unified system where they're building the OS, they're building it's not, they have the OS, they have the compiler for the IDE, they have, all of these apps, they have the hardware itself. And, it's a very vertical integration, and it's very, very hard. There'll be a lot of meetings between everybody trying to make it work, but no matter how friendly all of these other companies are, they still have to negotiate between different teams thinking the different things are important. And Apple doesn't have an absence of that, but definitely is much more streamlined. And so it's just going to be really hard for PCs to continue to compete with this, especially around the efficiency around the battery. The battery is insane, because they can tune all of that. And the developers that develop to Apple's frameworks are going to get the most out of it. They're the ones that aren't trying to reinvent the wheel, but use what Apple's doing. I think that's also what they're showing, that all that dynamic memory is only going to work if you're using Apple's. You're going to rely on the OS, rely on the frameworks to make that happen, or you won't get it. That's my guess.
Very exciting. Kind of exactly what had been rumored.
What we expected.
The rumors of a new iPad failed to deliver, although that could still happen before the year's out. That might be a press release for all we know, or maybe for next year. I think a lot of this was to clear the decks for early next year's announcement of the Vision Pro. They want a lot of attention for that. Tech Break is brought to you by our friends at IT Pro TV, now called ACI Learning. ACI's newest product, Insights, assists in closing lucrative skill gaps so your team won't fall behind. Empower your team, outmaneuver threats, and gain essential insight into your business. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit today. Twit listeners can receive up to 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan. The discount is based on the size of your team when you fill out their form.